Good afternoon or good morning. Welcome to Chemistry and Materials and Introduction to Materials. Your subject coordinator is Dr. Sujiva De Silva. Here she is there. And she is a materials engineer, and so am I, a metallurgical engineer by training, professional engineer in the past, but not presently. And between us, we'll deliver the bulk of your content, but we do have other lecturers. Now you might ask, what are the learning outcomes of the subject? In other words, what do we expect to get out of it? Well, we expect the following: that you would have a decent understanding of how to select the right material for the job, that you would have a decent understanding of the relationship between the structure of a material, which goes right down to atomic bonding, the properties of the material, and also how processing the material, melting it or casting it or bending it or whatever, changes this relationship. And then going forward into the 21st century, I hope that what we discuss together will position you to be able to recognize new design opportunities offered by new problems that we haven't even thought of right now. Of course, this is a technological subject taken by engineers and scientists, so we need a quantitative understanding of materials. It's not enough to say that's a nice piece of wood. Heck no, we need to know exactly what its tensile and compressive strength is and its stiffness and stuff like that. All right, so how will I learn in this subject? We have three different modalities, I guess: face-to-face lectures, laboratory sessions, and tutorials. So particularly in the lectures, we'll examine the theoretical basis for material science and show how it relates to industrial practice. Where at all possible, we'll point out some real-world issues and solutions to them, and also examples of workplace scenarios that we have noticed or experienced that involve materials. You may find that interesting. Then we have a great program of laboratory practicals designed to help you learn at your own pace. Now, attendance at the labs and handing in the assignments is mandatory. We also have in-depth tutorials on important topics led by experienced tutors. As we go through the semester, we have online quiz and online assessment items related to the lab work mostly, and one written assessment item, a role-playing exercise where you write a consulting report. All of these things contribute towards your class mark. What will I learn? Well, briefly, you'll learn how properties of materials relate to their crystal structure and bonding. If you're doing 60101, you do have some basic chemistry. If you've done chemistry in HSC, some of this is repetition for you. But we spun it with a more applied kind of spin, and I'm sure you'll find interesting stuff anyway. If you're a science student or doing 68070, we substitute some crystallography and X-ray diffraction in the place of the chemistry. Everybody gets to do the mechanical properties of materials in some detail because that's a key educational outcome for us. We'll talk about different classes of materials and their uses. This is not an exhaustive list, but we obviously can choose from polymers, plastics if you like, ceramics, which might arguably include glass, concrete, metals, composites like fiberglass. These are all viable options for different things. We will briefly consider physical metallurgy in the sense of alloys and alloy phase diagrams, and the reason we do this is to set you up to understand the properties of steel, because steel is a very flexible and versatile material, and we need to, when working with it, understand what the options are. We'll talk about welding and joining, which is a big thing in industry, what things you can weld and join, and how you might do it, and which ones you cannot. We'll talk about material selection and environmental sustainability, which are pretty important, and mention advanced materials here and there. Right, how do we check that you've actually picked up some knowledge, experience, and skills? Well, we have a variety of assessment items. We have the laboratory assessments that's done online. We have quizzes in the class. So we have an in-class quiz, and you can look in the subject outline to see which days those will be. The tutes are not marked, but I think if you work through the tute problems, you should have a pretty good idea if you are on track or not. But the labs are marked, and you need those marks. We have a consulting report, and we have the final exam. Now, you need to know that to pass this subject, you must get more than 50% in the final exam. If you totally don't succeed in the final exam, you have a really miserable mark, what we're saying is no amount of excellent marks in the classwork component can redeem you. And obviously, just to underline things, everything on average must be more than 50% if you want to pass. Now, I really need to emphasize the importance of assessment tasks. You really should work on getting those, during the semester, getting those assessment items in. So, for example, if you had a student codenamed X1 and he does or she does pretty badly in the class marks and the final, to get that, it's never going to work. They are not going to pass this subject. Student X2, on the other hand, did okay on the class mark, but terribly in the exam, not going to work. X6. Student X7, pretty marginal in both, but they're going to get across the mark because we have some latitude. All right, so the lab sessions, this semester, Monday to Wednesday, I think. Next semester, Monday to Thursday. And then at the end of the labs, we will open up UTS Online, so you can submit your post-lab assignment. And then just over a week later, the following week, midnight Friday, that's when we cut off accepting the online assessments. By the way, we have a document posted online on UTS Online, which we call the red document. It's not red, but what it is a simple, easy to read summary of the latest timetabling information. If there's some drama and something gets cancelled or postponed or moved, this is where you will find that information. Now, I need to emphasize that the laboratories are mandatory, meaning that you have to attend them. There's a roll, a register of attendance. The quizzes have to be taken when we say it's quiz time, on that date and in that time, because when the time window is closed, then we close UTS Online too. The assessment items consulting report is mandatory in the sense that if you don't do it, you won't get the marks and you'll be sorry. Do complete on time. Do complete it on your own unless we specify that it doesn't have to be on your own. Right, we have an excellent textbook. You can purchase it from Wiley direct, or you can use one of the many second-hand copies in circulation. I recommend it personally. I found that having the textbook was excellent and a good reference going forward in the laboratories. There are real labs with real laboratory issues, including safety. We absolutely insist that protective lab coats, closed shoes, and safety goggles must be worn. This is a non-negotiable UTS requirement, and indeed, if you work out in industry in Australia, you'll pretty much find that they would impose the same kind of criteria across a variety of workplace environments. So, hey, you might as well get used to it. Now, there will be a safety quiz posted on UTS Online, and you have to get full marks in this quiz before you are allowed into the lab. So keep an eye on UTS Online, which obviously is where all the important information is posted, announcements, whatever, results. And the moment the quiz comes up, do it so that you can get this knowledge and insight into your head. You won't be allowed access to the labs if you haven't passed the safety quiz. You won't be allowed access to the labs if you haven't got your goggles, your white coat, and your closed shoes. These are not negotiable items. Now, some people ask, how can I make the most of my learning in this subject? What tips can you give us? What tricks and tips? Okay, well, here are shortcuts born out of our years of experience, and we had been students too, believe it or not. Number 1, 2, 3, 4. Attend the lectures, attend the labs, attend the tutes, use the textbook, do the practice problems, read UTS online, make the most of the internet. Simples. If you do all of these things and make the maximum use of all these resources, you will ace the subject, meaning you will totally get an excellent mark. Now, if you have questions, you should contact your subject coordinator. You have other lecturers, but in a general, we're not the right people to ask. Finally, we wish you a great semester. We hope that you enjoy our